And the second I looked at her heart graph, I do not have a good poker face. My mouth dropped. And I think I said, oh my God. Now, I wasn't there to diagnose, and the mom goes, what? And I said, well, I'm just going to show you what I see. And I flipped it around, and her heartbeat looked like a rolling wave. There were no peaks. Welcome to the Let's Talk Shit podcast. I am your host, Lisa Garrett. I am a wife, mom of 4 boys, 2 German Shepherds, and I'm a gut and psychology practitioner. Look, I know you've done all the things with diet and exercise, and I also know that your health means the world to you. I'm going to show you how your gut health is the game changer to your weight, your confidence, and your stamina. So if you're ready to become the shit in your life, then let's jump in. Hello. Welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk Shit. I am your host, Lisa Garrett, and today we are diving in to one of my favorite topics, heart health. There's a lot of misinformation out there about how to take care of your heart, and I'm going to iron it all out to you so that it makes sense to you and you'll take action to have the best heart you can, because by the time you listen to this, it will be February, and that is the month of hearts, right? Okay, so let's get started. First of all, I want to thank you for listening and thank you for tuning in. And as always, if you have a comment, a review, something, if something comes to mind, please share it in the comments, or better yet, share the episode. So if you're listening to this, you're like, oh, you know, my parent has AFib, or my sister was diagnosed with this, or, you know, this got flagged on a lab test, then by all means, hit the share button right now on this, because I am not a cardiologist, but I am going to share some of my own experiences with you to give you the insight. I'm also going to share a couple books with you that will help iron things out. One of my favorite books I will share, and it is written by a cardiologist. And I read it probably, I'm going to say, 15 years ago. And one of my very, very good friends, she passed away about 5 years ago. She was diabetic at the time, and she was looking to really take care of her heart. And we were working on some nutrition things. And she brought me this book and said, look what I found. Found this book at Borders or Barnes and Noble at the time. And so I looked at it and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. And I want to share that title with you. I'll share it later. But I just want to go over some basic heart health things, because after all, everybody has a heart, right? And it is the first organ to show up on an ultrasound as a fetus, and the last organ to shut down at the end of life. So wouldn't it make sense to take the very best care of your heart every single freaking day, right? So if you have a congenital heart issue, if you have a stent, if you have AFib, if you have a fast heart rate, a slow heart rate, I have to tell you, there's a couple of really key pieces that the medical community is missing when it comes to the old frickin' heartbeat, okay? And these are things that you can do nutritionally that will make all the difference in how you feel and how your heart feels. First of all, I just want to say this. A heartbeat is nothing you should ever feel, okay? I'm sitting here talking. I don't feel the ba-dum-bum in my, I guess it wouldn't be ba-dum-bum, it'd be bum-bum, bum-bum, or lub-dub, lub-dub. I don't feel that. Neither should you. If you ever feel your heartbeat, you need to go to an ER. Hands down. Don't mess around. Don't mess around with anything. Get to an ER. Okay. But long before that happens, I want to share some of my experiences in working with heart sound recordings for a chiropractor. A heart sound recorder is a measurement of the heartbeat, the blood flowing in and out of the 4 valves of your heart. So you have the mitral valve, you have the tricuspid valve, the aortic valve, and then you have the pulmonary valve. So as the blood flows, what we would do is this was hooked into some software, and then we would put these electrodes right on people's shirt at 4 different spots around their heart, and it would pick up the sound of that valve, okay? That alone was super freaking cool, because then we could not hear it, because it would be similar to, like, you know how you go to the doctor and they take the stethoscope and they move it around, take a deep breath, and then they put it on your back. They're listening for the blood flowing through the heart of those 4 valves. That's why they're moving the stethoscope around. Well, the heart sound recording did the same thing without the sound. So then we would get a printout. I would get a reading of somebody's heartbeat in the mitral valve, somebody's heartbeat or blood flowing through the tricuspid valve, aortic and pulmonary. And from there, I could show the client, the patient, the chiropractor's patient, this is what your heartbeat looks like. And to the naked eye, it doesn't mean anything, except one thing people know is you've seen enough medical shows, you've seen enough ER and Grey's Anatomy or whatever, you know what an EKG looks like. This is not an EKG. This is the measurement of sound and strength of the blood flowing through the heart. So, but you know that a heartbeat should have peaks and that a flat line is not good. Those 2 things I think most people know. What you don't know is that certain things affect the peaks that you get. That's the strength of the heartbeat. And now, besides somebody flatlining, there is a rest period. So your heartbeat has lub, dub, rest. Lub, dub, rest. So it's big peak, comes down, smaller peak, little rest, and then goes on to the next one. That's technically how a heartbeat should look. And it should be able, like the lub is a peak, it comes all the way down. Dub is a smaller peak, about half that size, 2/3, comes down. And then there's a straight line of a rest period. And then the next cycle of lub, dub, boom, lub, dub, boom. So here's what I learned in doing, I'm not kidding, hundreds of these heart grafts over 4 years, hundreds of them. And people were blown away what, number one, caffeine did to their heartbeat. Okay. Not heart rate, heartbeat. So I would always say, when you come into the office, don't have any coffee. Oh, I only had 3 cups. No. We're going to test another day, because that totally throws it off. Or don't have a Diet Coke. Don't have any caffeine. The best test would be the person who was first in the morning without having breakfast or anything. Well, that was kind of hard to do, especially when you didn't start seeing people till 10 sometimes. So I always got a health history, and did you have any caffeine? Did you eat? You know, sometimes they're dehydrated. But the important thing that I want you to take away from this is that on these heart sound recordings, I could see AFib. An AFib on a heart sound recording basically looks like a bunch of peaks, like almost like a polygraph test. It's just a lot of peaks scribbling on the page, okay? That isn't good. That's also what the heart looks like when you've had way too much caffeine. Now that you probably know what that feels like. So if you feel jittery, your heartbeat is just way too fast. So I would be able to look at all 4 valves, and in the mitral valve, that was the valve. And, and I took a course on this. So, they educated us on how to apply nutritional principles based on the findings of the blood flowing through these 4 valves. So I would then say, okay, well, your mitral valve, this is what it should look like. And they gave us a perfect one, bam, here's a perfect one. This is what yours looks like. Tell me what you see that is different. And they'd be like, oh my gosh, well, I don't have as many peaks. Wow, I'm totally missing a second sound. Wow, I have a really long rest. Wow. There were all these, discrepancies between the perfect one and the client or the patient. So then what I would do is I would suggest take this supplement, Cataplex B Core, B as in boy, Core, because it actually has the B4, the number 4 factor in it, which helps to ignite the nervous system to beat with more intensity. Here's the thing. Your eyes blinking, your mouth moving, your lungs inflating, going to the bathroom, everything runs in our body on electrical conduction, the nervous system. And your B vitamins are running your nervous system. That's why it's so important to have your B12 checked, because if you feel laggy, unmotivated, just really like draggy, where you feel like you're dragging, yourself around, it could be that your heartbeat is just too slow. You don't have enough electrical conduction in your body to have those nerves around the heart fully contract and release that heart. Okay? So they actually showed us a video. They caught a fish and they sliced open the fish right there. And I'm not kidding you. The heart in that fish went to beat on for several minutes outside of the fish. At that time, there's no way it would have been AI generated because it wasn't a thing 15 years ago. I just remember seeing that being like, oh my gosh. So that's how strong your heart is. That's why people can be brain dead, for weeks and still have this solid heartbeat. Okay. So let me go back a little bit. So, in my office came this 16-year-old girl, and she was an exceptional soccer player, and she wanted to go on and play soccer, college. So her mom came in, and I think I described this maybe in an earlier podcast, so bear with me. Repetition is good. She said, hey, I want my daughter to start eating meat. She's vegan. And I'm at my wit's end, and I can't possibly get her to do it. She won't do it. Okay. Now this was probably 10 years ago. Okay. So I said, okay, well, let's do a heart sound recording test, and we'll let the heart decide what it wants. And in my mind, here's what I know about your heart. It is a muscle, as you know that too. And it is the most important muscle in your body because it's running the show. And anyone who's vegan and listening to this, you need to listen up. Your heart never craves a plant to beat. So I understand about animal welfare. I can appreciate the viewpoints, but you have to find ways to get the 8 essential amino acids. And you won't find it in broccoli or oatmeal or legumes. You'll find it in quinoa, but you know how much quinoa you have to eat? A lot. So I'm going to come back to the vegan thing here. So I hook up this young girl. And at the time, she blonde hair, super, I can always kind of tell who's vegan. Her lips were really pale. And it wasn't long after that I had a 25-year-old young man come in, vegan, marathon runner. His complexion was so gray. Anyway, so I hook her up, and she's kind of like, she was polite, but she was embarrassed, 16-year-old girl, and her mom's like, her mom was respectful of her. She just said, she plays soccer. I'm just worried about it, and I don't, she won't eat any meat. Can you help? So I said, sure, we'll start here. Hook her up. And the second I looked at her heart graph, I do not have a good poker face. My mouth dropped. And I think I said, oh my God. Now, I wasn't there to diagnose, and the mom goes, what? And I said, well, I'm just going to show you what I see. And I flipped it around, and her heartbeat looked like a rolling wave. There were no peaks, none. There was no lubbed up line. lub-dub line. It was a lub-dub. It was just a slow, it just looked like kind of a spread out rolling hill, no peaks. She goes, what does that mean? And I said, well, I'm going to hit record and then I'm going to tell you. So we hit record and then I explained, I'm not a doctor. I said, but this is what a normal one looks like. And you are 16 years old. And that girl looked at that and that was the turning point for her. I said, and you're playing soccer. So you are asking your heart to perform at a very high intensity for extended minutes every day between practice and games, right? And scrimmages. And your heart looks like this. I said, I'm not trying to scare you, but your heart isn't working the way you think it is. And if you feel out of breath, I do. She said, I do. If you feel out of breath, that's your heart asking for help. Well, what do I have to do? And I thought she was going to cry. The mom actually had tears in her eyes. I said, you know what? I want to give you a supplement called Cataplex B Core. You don't have to eat any meat. But the thing is, the Cataplex B Core has nutritional yeast, defatted wheat germ, and bovine liver. And those are the highest sources of vitamin B4. And that helps the electrical conduction of the heart. I said, I want you to take this every day, one a day, and come back and we'll test you next Wednesday. And the mom said, no, we're not taking a supplement. She's going to have to eat some meat. And I was like, oh, here we go. The mom-daughter struggle right here. I said, well, what does that look like for you? She goes, I'm not eating meat. And I said, will you eat eggs? Yeah. I said, start with 1 egg a day. Do I have to eat the yolk? I go, no, you have to eat the white because that's where all the protein is. So she started eating egg whites. I said, you have to have at least, I don't know what I told her, 2 or 3 or whatever, a day because of where you're at. And in 1 week, I'll retest you and then we'll see what that did. And I was 100% sure she would come back in that office with a changed heart graph. 1 week later, she came in. Her skin looked different. It wasn't as gray. And I noticed the first time she was in, she had like a beard of acne, which is a hormonal imbalance, which meant when I saw a teenager with acne, I thought, you're eating a lot of crap. Your hormones are imbalanced. You have way too much estrogen, testosterone, whatever. They're just all over. But the best way to balance those hormones is to not eat a bunch of crap. And when you're 16 and you're vegan 10 years ago, you're eating a bunch of crap. You don't know how to eat correct because there are plenty of people that are vegan that are athletes and can eat very well. But at 16, her mom wasn't privy to it. She clearly wasn't getting the right information. So she comes into the office. I hook her up. Her heart graph was night and day in 1 week by adding egg whites. In 1 week. And the mom, I said, look at this. I turn it around. I show her. And I showed her the week before. We compared it. And the mom started crying. I mean, it wasn't like, but she just had tears in her eyes. Thank you so much. And I go, your heart needs this so bad. So for right now, I need you to start with eggs every day. If you want to eat the yolk, fine. If not, fine. And maybe start adding some cottage cheese. I did not say yogurt because I'm not a fan of yogurt. I think yogurt is a shit food for the most part, unless you buy a really, really clean, good, non-flavored, sour brand. I know I said this in a podcast. Yogurt by nature is supposed to be sour. So if you want to add, your own stuff to it, like your own granola or berries or cinnamon or tomatoes or hot sauce, whatever you want to add to it, that's fine. But when a yogurt comes sugared and fake sugars and fake sugar alcohols and whatever else they put in it to make it look like a malt, a shake, an ice cream, it's not good. So be selective. And then she came back several months later and her heart graph looked stellar. Okay. The mom was so happy. So I'm here to tell you that if you are vegan, you are doing your heart an injustice unless you are eating the 8 essential amino acids, and you have to find those in the right foods. The best food to feed your heart, bar none, is an animal protein. The best, because our heart needs amino acids to function at its best. So all the heart healthy bullshit that's been out there for decades, only 1 or 2 eggs a week, no red meat, watch butter. By the way, butter is very high in B vitamins. If you eat grass-fed butter, very high in B vitamins. Maybe that's the thing you add to your diet if you're vegan, grass-fed butter, okay? And if you can't do grass-fed butter, guess what? You can do grass-fed ghee, and all you do is take the butter, put it in a warm oven, not a hot, it melts, and then you strain all of that melted butter over a cheesecloth, and all the stuff that comes through the cheesecloth is the ghee. And the ghee is the butter without the milk fat. So now you have a grass-fed ghee without milk fat. Okay? So you have all the oil and you'll have some of the protein. You're not going to have it all. Okay? I don't know what the protein grams are in butter versus ghee. That's a good one for me to look up. So butter is high in B vitamins. Grass-fed butter. Okay? Grass-fed. I'm not talking, everything. What is it? It's not butter, yogurt butter, fake butter, chemical butter, margarine. No, I'm not talking about that. But any animal protein that you eat. Now, animal protein that is clean, clean. Okay? Those things absolutely feed your heart. Okay? So in the 4 valves, you have the mitral, tricuspid, aortic, and pulmonary. So the mitral valve showed us that is the strength of your heartbeat. That's where I saw that this young girl's heartbeat was more like a slow, wave versus peaks. Okay, then in the tricuspid is where we saw calcium. I know this is so interesting. So how do we know that calcium was missing from the tissue, not the bones, from the tissue, because every tissue in your body needs calcium, is they would have lub, dub, line, and then it would do lub, no dub, line. So they were missing a second sound. Lub, dub, lub, dub. Well, for people that were lacking calcium that was not in the tissue, it would be lub, flatline, lub, flatline. Mine actually looked like that the first time I had my heart graft done. I couldn't believe it. And actually mine looked like hell. It was awful. I was embarrassed. I had no idea. I didn't know then what I know now, but I was just on the cusp of healing my gut, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so active and running and doing all these things. I've got to fix this, or I'm just gonna be taken out. So the mitral valve for strength, the tricuspid valve for calcium in the tissue. You can take all the calcium you want, but if that calcium gets locked up in the arterial walls and it doesn't get shuttled into the tissues, you now have plaque buildup. So be really careful about the kind of calcium that you're taking, okay? You've got to shuttle the calcium out of the tissue and on its way, out of the bones and on its way. So not out of the bones, out of the tissue. So there is a supplement called Cataplex F as in Frank. And Cataplex F, it's made of flaxseed. It has the same effects of like an anti-inflammatory. You take one of those every day with your calcium. It will shuttle that calcium out of the tissue so it doesn't get blocked up in the walls of the arteries. Okay? So that's where we would see the second sound, in the tricuspid. Okay, now we have the aortic valve. This was my favorite valve because that was the one that told me about digestion. So I could see how people were processing fats based on the peaks. Okay. So if the peaks were tight, then they were processing their fats well. If their peaks were not peaks, but they were more like hills, kind of like the girl, then I knew they were having trouble processing fats. Or if it was just like a real, more or less like that, that polygraph kind of line thing. It looks like that, but it's not. It looks like just line scribbles up and down. That told me that there was digestive issues. And that's where we could suggest, okay, let's give you something to break down fats, something to transport the cholesterol, out of the body. And that's where I could really focus on nutrition. So I loved working with the aortic valve, with clients. And then the pulmonary valve showed us stress. So if someone was under a lot of adrenal stress, whether it was physical, emotional, didn't matter. If they had surgery or they were worried about their life, their finances, their relationship, whatever. I could see the stress in the pulmonary valve. And you know what? There wasn't one person that came in there that didn't have a pulmonary reading that needed attention. So I would give them something for the strength of their heart, something to shuttle calcium, something to process usually fats. And usually I could tell in the aortic valve, the first thing I would say is, do you have a gallbladder? I don't. Well, it's showing up right here. Because if you don't have a gallbladder, it's really hard to process your fats unless you're taking bile salts. That's a game changer. And then the pulmonary valve, we would put them on Adrenal or adrenal tonic or something to help support their adrenals, because in supporting their adrenals, their whole body would just work better anyway. So while you may not be able to get a heart graph where you are, or heart sound recording, that's okay. I know somebody in Omaha who does them. Message me because I can send you there to get them. Or you can check with your chiropractor. A lot of them can do them. And nutrition is what nourishes the heart, period. End of story. Whether it's B vitamins, whether it's shuttling the calcium out of the tissue, whether it's providing cataplex B4 so that you actually have enough electrical conduction so that heart beats at the rate it wants to beat. And then your adrenals. Most people have an awful lot of stress. They don't feel like it and they don't admit it, but they have it. And so if you're not sure and you're working full time and you're running like a tight schedule or you're traveling a lot, nobody ever feels stressed. But I will say this, when you don't have the runaround stress of your life, you notice it big time. Like right now in my life, I'm not running any kids around. I haven't for 3 years since our son graduated from high school. And I wasn't even running him around, but I was going to his stuff, trying to juggle his stuff with my work. So let's say 4 years. And let me tell you, if you don't think you're stressed running around with children, even maybe running around with, older parents, elderly parents, you have to get to doctors, or just running around with your job and you're traveling, you have stress. Everybody needs some sort of an adrenal support because your heart feels it. Your heart feels it. A couple of other things. So if someone was taking Adderall at the time, I saw Adderall on a heart graph. I didn't even know what to think when I saw it. In fact, I kept repositioning the little recorder, trying to get a better reading. And then I asked, "Did you have caffeine?" No, I didn't have any caffeine. And it was at the end of the day, and so this young girl left. And then I sent the graph to my mentor. He said, "Is she on Adderall?" I said, "Yes." He goes, "That's why her heart graph looks like this. You need to have her come back. You need to visit with her so that she goes back to her doctor and visits with her doctor and say, look, this is what's showing up on my heart graph. This is how it's affecting it. Is there another medication that I could take that gives me similar results without the stress on my heart?" That was very, very telling. Another gentleman I had come in, he was in his, 50s at the time. His heart rate was in the 30s, 34 to be exact. I'll never forget this. 34 beats a minute. I couldn't believe it. Blood pressure, like 110 over, I don't know, 90 or something, 110 over 70. But his heart rate was in the 30s. So again, this was one of those moments where I was like, oh my gosh, like that's your, I didn't say that, but I'm thinking, trying to, because I wasn't in a position to diagnose. I'm never in a position to diagnose, but I had done enough that I was like, this can't be right. Like, am I seeing 34? Well, guess what? It wasn't long after that. He ended up in ICU in Omaha with a terrible infection. They have no idea where it came from. He was in the hospital for 30 days. He lost a bunch of weight. He came out of it and he was a zombie. He was in a major stage of adrenal fatigue prior to ending up in the hospital. I don't know if I saw him on the cusp of this infection, but I remember hearing that he had been hospitalized, and it wasn't long after that that he retired. Yeah, because he was a big CEO in Omaha, and his job was literally making him sick. And so now he's been retired for I don't know how long. Retired early because of his health. Best thing he ever did. He has grandkids now, happy, healthy, all the things. But when his heart rate said 34, again, I went back to my mentor. Am I seeing this? Yes, you are. Oh my gosh, he said this man needs phosphorus. Phosphorus is the mineral that gives the kind of like the ignition to the electrical conduction. So it like, and I don't say it jump starts the heart, but it gives the heart gas. It's like you're missing phosphorus in your body. Why are you missing phosphorus? Because if you're in adrenal fatigue, you're missing a lot in your body. That's the problem with the adrenals. When you're in that fatigue of, and you don't even know you're in it, that's the sad thing. You might have food sensitivities, migraines, chapped lips, chronically dry skin, can't lose weight, can't gain weight, wired and tired, hair loss, all the things that just kind of look like autoimmunity usually start with adrenal fatigue. So that kind of thing landed him where he is now. And so phosphorus is a mineral, and if you're not absorbing the regular vitamins and minerals, there's no way you're absorbing phosphorus. And phosphorus, it's hard to get. We don't have phosphorus-rich soil because there's all kinds of crap in the soil so the plants can grow faster and multiply, right? And they don't have any weeds, and it's better for the farmers and blah, 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 blah. Well, we're paying the price on that. So when I suggested to this gentleman to take phosphorus, it was a dropper, and I did it right there in water, and he just took it, and then we waited 15 minutes, and I retested, and his heartbeat went up like 10 beats. 10 beats. How do you know if you need phosphorus? If you go to the doctor and they're like, wow, your blood pressure is really low, then probably your heart rate's really low. Okay. This guy had a blood pressure of like 110 over 70 or something, but he was a big guy, like tall, big bones, big hands. I thought that was weird that his blood pressure, and I took his blood pressure. I was like, maybe I'm just freaking doing it wrong. Maybe I'm not paying attention. And we had a digital thing, so it wasn't like I had to count beats. So I kept doing it. And I was like, okay, well, I guess it is. I thought that was odd. But the heart rate, when you have a really, really low heart rate, like you take your heart rate, if you wear your watch or your Oura ring and it's showing you beats per minute in the morning, that doesn't mean that you're necessarily in really good shape. I think that is a myth. Now, when your heart rate is too low, you can still have a lot of energy. You think. You're faking it. Or you could be in a certain stage of adrenal fatigue, probably, who knows, stage 2 or 3 by that time. So the other way you can tell, one of the key signs is if you have some ankles that are swollen. So if you have some, and I don't mean like Like if you've got, 100 pounds to lose and you have swollen ankles, that's different. Or if you have cankles. But if you have swelling, maybe you need some phosphorus. Okay. The body's going to give you all kinds of signs that it's not functioning where it wants. Okay. So, chapped lips, splitting fingernails, slits like in your ear, slits can show some wear and tear on the heart. These are all, or white spots on your nails. These are all things to show deficiencies, because the body will keep trying to get your attention. So, gave this guy some phosphorus, came back, went up 10 beats. Now, another one is if your heart is beating way too fast, like the girl on the Adrenal. So there's something called organically bound minerals, which slows it down, calms it down. Again, it's a mineral deficiency. Your heart's looking for minerals. Okay. It needs the amino acids to beat because it's a muscle, but it also needs the minerals for the electrical conduction. Okay. So you need both. You don't just need broccoli, and you don't just need eggs. Although you could survive on eggs and spring water. You honestly could. You couldn't survive on broccoli and spring water. You couldn't. There's no amino acids. So you have fast heartbeats, slow heartbeats, the heart sound recording that I talked about. And then there's a book I want you to grab. And it's called Reversing Heart Disease by Dr. Stephen, Stephen, Sinatra, like Frank Sinatra, but it's Stephen. He's a cardiologist. This book will change how you look at heart health. Now, he does have a diet in there. He talks about people doing the Mediterranean diet. That has kind of evolved. I don't think it's a one size fits all for everybody. I think you need to do your gut health first and foremost and figure out, why do I have these deficiencies? I had a lot of deficiencies and my heart graph looked terrible, absolutely terrible. And if you don't have access to a heart graph, if you have any kind of food sensitivities, I'm sensitive to gluten. I can't eat a lot of dairy, whatever it is, do your gut health and get that corrected so that you don't have those deficiencies, because those deficiencies will show up in your heart. And the other thing is, if you're ever laying there and you feel that flutter in your heart, I have felt it. That's when I get up and I go take a Cataplex B4. I'm not saying that you should do that. That's what I do. But if there's anything that doesn't feel right with your heart, it's not. Go get it looked at. And a flutter's different than pain or a clench, if you know what I mean. So flutters, that's another way the heart might be out of a little rhythm. That whenever I feel it, I'm like, I didn't have enough B vitamins. I know what's going on here. So get your B vitamins checked. And ignore the nonsense about eggs and grass-fed beef and butter, because it is nonsense. We were meant to eat those things. They are here on this earth for a reason. It is logical to eat them. It is not logical to eat straight plants. There were no plants on the planet. There was just meat until man evolved and figured out he could be a farmer. Okay, there were only animals and what grew on the trees until, if they lived in a climate where there was winter, there was nothing growing. And then all they had was animals and water. And, in warm months, if there was something growing on a tree like a berry, they ate it. But then man figured out how to farm, and then plants were born. So plants are good. Amino acids are better. Like I said, if you were on an island, you could live with spring water and animal protein. You could not live with spring water and broccoli. And the missing element is the amino acids. So taking care of your heart means more than eating fat-free. It means actually the opposite. There's no such thing as fat-free anymore. Because if you're eating grass-fed beef, grass-fed butter, wild-caught salmon, pasture-raised pork, pasture-raised chicken, free range, walk on the ground, get outside kind of eggs, you are no longer eating fat-free, and that does not apply to anybody. And if you're afraid to eat fat, you have to come out from underneath the rock and see what's going on, because that was a bag of goods we were sold in an attempt to slow down heart disease, but we ended up getting fatter because of it, because everything that was presented as fat-free had a lot of calories and made everybody's insulin spike, and we became fatter. We became like grazing cattle because we started eating 6 times a day, because when you don't eat fat, you're never full. So we were eating popcorn and Snackwell cookies and, honey wheat bread with fat-free turkey luncheon meat, That's what we were, and fat-free cheese, dumbest thing in the world I ever heard, fat-free cheese. Could it be any more manufactured? Go back to the basics. What was your grandmother eating? I doubt she was eating the fake butter spray. I doubt she was eating that. She was eating butter because it sat out on the counter, right? So if you go back to those basics, I also feel that we had less heart disease. Heart disease really started skyrocketing actually when smoking was really, really popular in the 70s and 80s. Huge. And they didn't see a decline in heart disease. They saw the birth of type 2 diabetes by pushing the fat-free movement. So they didn't really trade one disease for another. They just birthed another one, okay? And now they're calling Alzheimer's type 3 diabetes because it's directly correlated to insulin resistance. That's the other thing. The more amino acids you eat, the more insulin sensitive you become. And you want the most insulin sensitive body you can have, because the more insulin sensitive you are, the better you can fight disease, the better your heart runs, the better your brain runs, and the better your whole body runs for your whole life, not just right now. And nobody wants to lose their mental capacity. Nobody. And it doesn't have to be that way, but you have to swim upstream a little bit, because your doctor's not going to tell you what I just told you about food, because that is not what's in the textbooks. They're not going to change the books of 50 years now. They're not changing those anytime soon, even though we have this new pyramid that's come out. They're not going to change. They're hoping it all goes away in the next 3 years, and then the new administration comes in and flips it back. Okay, look around you. Do you ever look around you at the grocery store? What are people buying? What is on sale? If I get one more freaking flyer from a grocery store about what's on sale for the week, it's never anything good. Sometimes it's steaks, but it's never the good eggs. It's never grass-fed butter. It's the store butter. It's never really good olive oil. Sometimes it's avocados, but it's, they sprinkle that in. Really, the ship food should be sprinkled into the ads. I mean, if you took everything out of our grocery store except produce and meat, it wouldn't be a warehouse. It would be 2 aisles. That's it. That's it. You wouldn't need the pharmacy in the grocery store. You wouldn't need to tool on over there and get your prescriptions. So I'm going to leave you with that. Take care of your heart. You need to, first and foremost, eat your amino acids. Get all of your proteins, not from fake proteins. You don't even have to do protein powders. Do real protein, okay? Real, walk on the earth, swam in the ocean, flew in the air kind of proteins. And you cannot go wrong, but buy healthier qualities of them, okay? Because sick animals do breed sick people. And then, if you have deficiencies that are nutritional, they are affecting your heart. They are affecting your brain. And if you are eating more of the processed foods in a grocery store, whether they're organic, non-GMO, soy-free, dairy-free, sustainably, whatever you want to put on the label in a box, that's not a whole food. That's probably not a whole food. You need to eat real food all the time, not some of the time, all the time, because that's what your body wants. So I'm going to leave you with that. Don't forget that you can always contact me about gut health. I would love to have you in my program. All the supplements I talked about, if you want to know, you can go to my website and just hit the tab supplements, and you can find all of these from Standard Process. That is a brand I trust. I trust that brand because I've used it for I don't know, 15 years, and I get results. And I saw the results with people in our office at the time with these heart grafts. And it is simply remarkable. When you give the right food at the right time, the body thrives, you guys. It just thrives. So I'm going to leave you with that. Happy Heart Health Month. Take really good care of your heart. And until next time.
Hey, before you go, would you like to receive my Ultimate Gut Repair Guide for free? This guide has everything you need to know about leaky gut, what's causing it, how it's affecting your daily life, a meal plan, and 5 ways you can start healing your gut today. This is the same framework that my VIP clients use when they start healing their gut. It's amazing. All you have to do is leave an honest review of Let's Talk Shit, screenshot it, share it to your Instagram stories, and tag me at Lisa Garrett Nutrition. I hope today's episode inspired you to make some shit happen in your life because you're freaking awesome. And I cannot wait to connect with you next time on Let's Talk Shit.